Morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Tonight's guest is MJ, where we'll be talking about how Christianity would link with Eastern traditions.
Yes. So, how are you doing today, MJ?
Doing awesome. Thank you.
hmm Yeah, it's nice to have you on this show.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Tell
Uh,
the audience all about yourself.
I am practically middle aged, not quite there yet. I've got a passel of kids, pets, just I've traveled all over the world. Grew up as a missionary kid, then spent some time in the military. And I'm a professing Christian. Went through a period of time where I almost became atheist. Funny story. Not really funny. Kind of sad. Uh, but Derek and I became friends through a pro-life group, or a couple of them actually kind of interacted on those groups.
yeah, yeah, that's how I originally met you through the pro-life group, and we ended up talking, and we've been having that sort of back and forth. What I do nowadays, I just send you dank memes.
Yeah, yeah. I would call myself a meme creator. I got into that a few years ago. It's been fun.
Yeah. So, me and my friend have been interested in hearing about, talking about religion, um, your journey as a Christian, and you know, I know for a little fact that you have actually incorporated some Eastern practices into your worship.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a Christian who believes in reincarnation, and a lot of it due to some sort of supernatural spiritual experiences in my life.
So we take it you're not for sola scriptura.
Um, well, I mean, I have a lot of Catholic friends, but like I base my beliefs on the Bible. Like if it doesn't line up with Scripture, then you know I don't really um, per se. How would I put it? So if it doesn't line up with Scripture in the sense of like morality and everything, then it's a no go. But um, in the case of reincarnation, that's something that I do think that the Bible kind of backs up. There's a few passages. The main one being actually when Jesus and Nicodemus were having their combo. He said, basically, Nicodemus said, "How can a man be born again um, unless, uh, he goes through his mother's womb a second time?" And Jesus said, "Man can be born again through water and through spirit." So I take it the water birth is an indication that yes, we can go through reincarnation, and going through that birth process multiple times.
So
Yeah,
where exactly in the Orient have you traveled?
Um, Nowhere yet. I plan to go to Japan soon. Want to visit, maybe even live there someday. We'll see how that goes.
What I wouldn't give to live in Japan.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
uh, well, if I may make a recommendation, don't go to Saudi Arabia.
Right?
Or Iraq or Iran or anywhere in the Middle
Right.
East.
I would not make it very long in Saudi Arabia, I feel
Not
like.
not China either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Oh, well, just think on the bright side, though, with Saudi Arabia, they have a low crime rate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know, I mean, granted, that's probably due to the fact that whoever does commit crimes gets their hands cut off,
Right.
but hey, it works.
Right.
Uh, yeah, but anyway, you have said, we talked a little bit before this, and you brought up how you have 6 children. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a madhouse. Like literally for a while there, my how the internet has the Wi-Fi. whatchamacallit, handle. People come up with creative names like FBI van or whatever. So ours was the Loud House. That's actually a cartoon on Nickelodeon or something.
Well, the way Nickelodeon's been corrupted nowadays.
Oh yeah. I will say that one is kind of cute. I mean, yeah, granted, it has some stuff in there that's just very SJW-ish or whatever. But that is one of the ones that's kind of cute. I'm not really hardcore on like supervising what my kids watch. There are certain Disney shows and Nick shows that I'm like, nah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, since you have a sort a unique perspective when it comes to Christianity, does faith play a good role in how you choose to educate your children?
Oh, definitely. I'm not. I'm the kind of person that like I don't really push my kids to choose a particular faith or anything, but I kind of encourage them to to be Christian in the sense of like taking them to church so they get that exposure at least, and then they can decide for themselves when they as they get older whether they want to have faith or not, whether they want to be a Christian or not, etc.
Yeah.
So
how do you view other religious figures like Krishna, Zarathustra, Buddha?
well,
What's total?
yeah, exactly. So I want to tread carefully here because I don't aim to offend, but when I heard the story of Buddha, I was like, okay, he's kind of a deadbeat because he left his wife and his child, and that was kind of, I don't know what I can say here with censors, but that was kind of shit,
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, I say a lot worse on here.
We have no censors on this channel. It's already demonetized.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. So we're good. I have no filter.
They automatically just when they see my picture and stuff, they said, "Yeah, demonetize."
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I've seen a lot of your your themes, and they're pretty fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because I I'm a what they call I'm a connoisseur of dark humor.
A democratically elected asshole, according to Atheist Republic.
Where do you
Yeah.
monetize everyone? Oh my gosh.
Oh well, yeah, but I mean, to be, at least they have some ground with me. Uh, but I would say that it's always just funny how things work out when it comes to YouTube and its censorship.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite YouTubers, Jenna Marbles, she got basically kicked off YouTube. Essentially, I mean, she quit, but they more or less made her quit because she got so much backlash and bullying for like what they call blackface. She dressed up as Nicki Minaj in one of her videos as like a gag or a joke, and like it's ridiculous.
Even that groveling apology to the woke mob didn't save her.
No.
Isn't she Canadian?
She was talking about slut shaming, and then like years ago, and then recently, like I think it was a year ago, might have been, offered this apology, which you should never do anyway. But she's like, I just don't want to hurt anyone.
Yeah, I hate that. Like, I'm the kind of person like if you do something even as a joke or whatever, like own it. You know what I mean?
Because therefore you're admitting guilt and offering up your head to be chopped off.
Literally, it's like a lynch mob.
Yeah, and
It's
that's
more like confessing your sins before you get. Yeah.
Isn't she Canadian? Last I checked.
She's from Boston, I think. Yeah.
Well, I might think of Nicole Arbor.
Yeah, I just don't know on that one. You might be, no, Nicole Arbor, she's Canadian. She got a lot of shit from people, rightly so in some cases, because she's a shock jock. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, being blackface isn't bad in Canada. Look at their prime minister.
Right.
Yeah.
Ridiculous how people practically worship him.
Prime Minister blackface. And he,
they're trying to accuse Ollie London of Asian face, even though he, by their logic, he actually became a Korean. If you heard of that story.
Oh my gosh.
yeah. But yeah, I also, since you are a Christian, I'm contractually obligated to ask you this question.
Oh, sure.
Does,
Ask
does
away.
does the power of Christ compel you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it compels me to be a decent person, and live my life with compassion for people. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm perfect by any means. I get angry. There are a handful of people in the world that I hate, or maybe more than a handful.
Colonel Mute.
But, I try to be loving and kind to most people and give them the benefit of the doubt and tell the truth.
Might be coming from you. Background.
Yeah, I think you're next to a fan or something. Sounds like you're next to a fan.
There we go.
Now it sounds perfectly great.
All right, where'd you leave off?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I basically give people the benefit of the doubt and tell them, the kind of people they are, and then I kind of deal with them based on that.
It's nice. I mean, yeah, I always ask Christians that because I'm always hoping one day they'll get that I'm making a reference to The Exorcist.
The what?
Exorcist movie. The one where they have this demon possessed girl where
Right.
they have her lying on the bed. They have a priest there telling her that the power of Christ compels her.
Right.
Yeah. So I've always found that funny. In media, Christians are really depicted as only two things. They're either the whack job fundamentalist that's trying to crucify you, or they're one of those happy-go-lucky people like wearing like the flannel shirts and just having a happy-go-lucky day.
Well, I am neither. I'm not like an asshole about my Christianity, and I'm not like Jesus juking people all the time, like happy, happy, joy, joy. Like I'm kind of an asshole myself sometimes when pushed to my limits or when I'm just in a particular mood. Because I'm human and I don't like try and do the whole fake Christian thing. One way or the other, like thinking I'm like better than other people, or conversely, just everything's love and joy and kumbaya.
So you're a practicing Christian, right?
Oh, what kind of Christian?
Practicing Christian.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a regular churchgoer. I've kind of got burnt out on church over the years. A lot of crazy stuff. Just judgmental people, hypocrites, things like that. But I have faith. I read the Bible. I pray. I try and keep dark forces away. That sort of thing.
Yeah, so you're practicing to be a Christian.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I always joke when it comes to that. When someone says that they're a practicing Christian, I say, "Oh, so you're just practicing to become one."
Exactly.
It's a play on words.
Exactly. Because no one's really that Christ-like, honestly. I mean, let's be real.
Well, I mean that does go into human depravity.
Yeah. No, exactly. Exactly. And the crazy thing is that the people that think they're the most, the most spiritual and stuff like that, with the exception of like say some sweet old ladies, sweet old church ladies that just really practice what they preach,
Then they go have beer. Then they go have beer and crabs afterwards.
Right. Well, aside from those sweet old ladies, most Christians, like, you're far from, like, Christ-like. You're maybe trying or you're getting there, but nobody's really there.
They commit loads of sins on Saturday so they can go to church on Sunday to ask for forgiveness.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, you have varying different types of Christians. Like, I could go on forever about all the different types that I've seen growing up, because I grew up a missionary kid. Like I say, my dad was a preacher, so I saw the whole shebang of, like, all the different types of Christians and how they operate and everything. So you have those people that go out and party on Saturday, go to church on Sunday so they can kind of clean their slate. You have the kinds that, always throughout the week, they're just hallelujah, just always trying to.
The evangelicals are the worst kind.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. It's weird because, like, growing up, we grew up sort of evangelical, me and my family, but we would always go out and hand out what they call these tracts. But some of the tracts, when you actually get to reading them, they're kind of a little bit effed up in the way that they approach certain things, like very stereotyped. They're called chick tracts. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Oh.
But they're basically like little manga, little cartoon type things. But they basically tell you the way to get to Jesus and the way to say the sinner's prayer, and all that. But they have this whole story, and, like, some of them are, like, super homophobic. Some are, like, really messed up stories. Like, I think kids die in a couple of the tracks. Like, it's crazy.
So, and this is another fun fact that not many people do know, but you actually are part of the LGBT community technically.
Yeah, definitely. I am bi, and I have one of my children is pan, so, and then my fiance is also pan.
So they're attracted to pans?
Yeah, exactly. So pansexual is basically like you like all the things, all the multitude of genders or gender expressions. See, I'm part of the LGBT community, but I've been accused of, like, homophobia myself, which is like, okay, that's different, because I don't buy into a lot of the whole SJW kind of things that the LGBT community does a lot.
So how's that work? Like, you're attracted to both. You're married, but you're also attracted to women, and he's attracted to anybody.
So, I mean, I think there's a misconception that's been around for a long time with bi people, and of course this would also apply to pan, that if you are attracted to both, that you're gonna be, say, with a guy. If you're female, you're gonna be with a guy, and you're gonna be thinking about females while you're with that guy. But that doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, some bi people or poly people. I mean, bi people or pan people are polyamorous or polygamous or whatever. But that doesn't necessarily mean that all are. A lot of them are also monogamous. So in my case, I'm like a serial dater. I'm a serial relationship person. So if I'm in a relationship with someone, I'm going to be, like, loyal to that person. I might think, oh yeah, that person over there is attractive, but I'm committed to the person that I'm with.
Basically, I always thought of pansexuals as people who are just bisexuals with no standards.
Right. No. So the difference or the distinction between bi and pan people are that pan people also are attracted to, say, trans people. Yeah.
I've never been able to figure this out. Like, there's people who are trans, who are people who are not attracted to trans. They're super straight. So what do you call a straight guy who's attracted to hermaphrodites? Chicks with dicks.
Or
Well,
dudes with vaginas.
No, they weren't. They were they're hermaphrodites. They're born with both genitals.
Yeah.
The rare birth defect that has nothing to do with trans.
With hermaphrodites, basically, it's not like they get a choice. They're basically born with both.
I don't know. What do you call a straight person who's attracted to member of the opposite sex who has different genitals?
I would say they're probably gay, like closeted or something. Honestly, I mean, I'm sure.
Even though it's a straight man who's attracted to the feminine, and there's a straight woman who's attracted to the masculine.
Well, I mean, for instance, I would call myself bisexual. I don't really consider myself pan as much because, generally speaking, I'm not attracted to trans people. But like, say, I see someone, a female who's very attractive, and I don't really know what's going on in her pants, but I just see an attractive female, and if she's passing as a trans person, I might still be attracted to her because she looks like an attractive female, right? Same goes for a guy. I would see like an attractive guy, and if it's a trans male, female to male.
Anyway, I don't know how he ended up in these weeds, but
a common thing that I also do in my own political activism is, when it comes to the trans thing, a big thing that's been coming up as of recently is the idea of rape by deception.
Oh yeah.
In the now this predates when trans issues were more prominent, but it's now come up more with trans people. And the idea, at least nowadays, is if, let's say, a trans woman, did not disclose to their partner that they were a biological male, and with all that information from them, and many people, and many people are saying that should be considered rape because there's not really any consent there.
Well, it's rapey in a way because you're not. I mean, it's maybe somebody that might not be attracted to a trans person. They think this person is, regular cisgender person, and they go on a date. They get, things happen, and then they find out that this person is not who they thought who they thought they were. So in a way, it's kind of that way.
Well, I've always said that it's, no matter what, it's a sort of immoral thing because you are lying to a person. And relationships that are started on lies are not really going for success.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. Like, I mean, even if the sex was, say, consensual, or the kissing was consensual or whatever, if it gets to a point where they do find out, hey, this is not who I thought, it can feel kind of like a violation.
Well, it's, I've always said that it's immoral, definitely, but I don't really think rape by deception should really be a thing, because then you really get into the weeds with a lot of things.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's a lot of people that think, even, say, for instance, a situation where a girl is drunk or high or something like that, and a guy and a girl, cis straight people, whatever, they get into a situation where they have a one-night stand or whatever, and then the next day the girl's regretting it or whatever. There's a lot of SJWs that would consider that rape because she has regret the next day, or because she was not completely capacitated, But if they're both drunk, like, how would you define, who was crossing a line,
Moral of the story: don't have one night stands.
Well,
yeah.
Moral of the story really is don't be having sex with people you can't trust to have your best interest.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I've always said that that would be a nightmare to some closeted gay people, because on one hand, feminists would also say that having sex with your partner when you don't really want to have sex. Like, let's say you're having sex with them because you want to get them to do a chore for you. Like, some feminists have actually said that counts as rape. But what I've funny enough said is, like, if you consider that rape and you also consider not disclosing information rape, I've always imagined like a homosexual man that's in the closet and he has sex with a biological woman. You know, who really is raping who in that situation? Because, I mean, on one hand, he isn't being honest and disclosing the fact that he's gay to her. And on the other hand, she's having sex with him when he really doesn't want to have sex with her.
Right.
So,
it's a conundrum.
I mean, it's just going to get really complicated. Really, the only thing that it does in the long run is it just fills up the prison with more people.
Right, and then there's people roaming the streets that really should be in prison, Obviously, we have the whole, lists for pedos and stuff like that, and honestly, they could, as far as I'm concerned, they should be in prison for life,
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a libertarian, so we have a strict pedos go to the wood chipper policy.
Same, bro, same.
I also make a distinction when it comes to, pedophilia and stuff. When it comes to someone that has the urge to do that but never really acts on it, it's someone that actively participates in it.
Right, exactly. Like, you could have those feelings or urges or whatever, which you're still a sicko for having them, but
that's what they're trying to normalize now.
Yeah, they're trying to normalize that, and there's a lot of pedos out there that are like, "Oh, well, I'm not acting on it, so it's all good." But
got this drag queen pedo hour and these that rainbow dildo monkey the other day. What is that all about?
Right?
It's really a complete mess when it comes to that sort of stuff. I mean, I've always been a supporter of gay marriage, and I'm a supporter of gay marriage. I'm a pro-choice liberal, and I'm pro-gay marriage in the sense that I don't really care if gay people get married at all. And I'm a more centrist libertarian, and I legitimately could care less what two gay people want to do when it comes to their. I recommend guys don't really get married in today's court system, but hey, if two guys want to do it, hey, that's their funeral, not mine.
Right. Even before when I was kind of in the closet and I wasn't even admitting really to myself my sexuality. Like I said, I grew up conservative, Christian, all that. I was very open-minded, like, hey, live and let live, that kind of thing. As long as, it wasn't anything obviously abusive, like, children, animals, that kind of thing, that's completely off limits. But what two adults do in their own bedroom, that's their business. If a guy wants to dress up as a chick and, be a drag queen, that's his business. When I lived in South America, there were, what do they call them? Paisanos, I think is the word. I can't remember. But basically, there were these drag queens, and they did it in a more comical way than they do here in the U.S., in the sense that they would stuff their shirts with giant-ass balloons and just over-the-top makeup and everything. They basically look like clowns, but they're drag queens. Yeah. And my parents were freaked when they saw them.
One of the many things I like about the Orient is they will put up with shit like this.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when it comes to the trans issue, I get called transphobic. Me and my friend here both have been called transphobic. When
it doesn't mean anything.
Well, yeah, but I mean, when I've stated multiple times, my position on it is like, from a purely a growing up standpoint, I take a more conservative view on gender. That's not really my choice on that matter. That's sort of how I was raised. And I've already spent my entire life trying to figure this out. I'm not doing it. I'm not going through another 20 years trying to figure it out again. And, but I've also said that I sincerely do not care what someone identifies as per se. The only thing I've said is I just don't want to be forced at the point of a gun to acknowledge it.
Oh, definitely.
That's why they have to censor and compel speech, because they know their position is indefensible and detached from reality.
Well, I mean, it's sort of like this for me. If you want to call yourself a 10-foot tall, 6-headed giraffe, hey, be my guest. I just don't want to have to feed you grass, be forced to feed you grass or something.
Right? Yeah, I mean, same, because, like, I'll call people by their preferred pronouns or whatever if they want to call themselves a Zer or a G or, whatever.
I wouldn't do that. It's just feeding their delusions.
No, I mean, if I'm, like, in, like, a position of, like, having some kind of a friendship or anything with them, like, I'll respect that. But at the same time, if it's, like, a thing of, like, you must automatically know my pronouns, and if you get it wrong or you don't feel like you want to call me that, then you're just a bigot. That kind of thing, that doesn't fly with me.
Yeah, I mean, like I've always said, and, obviously, if you forget one time or even twice, like with me, it takes me a long time to remember pronouns, like just regular on the fly pronouns, because my English sucks.
I don't bother with the pronoun game. I just call them as I see them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fair. That's fair. You don't have
it's
to.
just like
Everything is different versus.
thing, a common thing that I often hear from the trans community, if you forget like they're trying to think how to word it. Oh, if you forget, their pronoun once, they get mad at you and they say that you're contributing to the high suicide rate in trans people.
I just double down because they're bluffing.
No, they are. I mean, a lot of the SJW type behavior is bluffing because they are not as offended as they pretend to be, I feel like.
Well, I mean, obviously, no one ever is going to say that trans people killing themselves is a good thing. It isn't. And, I've been on record multiple times saying that, I'm against bullying against anybody, whether they be trans, gay, straight, or whatever. Bullying doesn't fly with me, but, I've just said, at some point also you have to acknowledge that people are individuals and they do make choices.
There are limits.
Yeah. I mean, for example,
if you're gonna bully somebody for somebody who's retarded, like that's just you're a scumbag.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
or if he's just gay, like not the activist type of in your face entitlement gay, just normal live and let live gay.
I mean, like I said, I'm against, bullying of any kind. It is destructive and it is a problem. I mean, the thing is that what we forget to mention is that, we give trans people all these, this consideration, which is fair when it comes to the suicide rate. But I also feel that we have other populations of people that have similar, if not higher, suicide rates that we really don't.
Anyway, we've divulged far from the subject matter.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying. Well, I mean, we came here to talk about stuff like this, but I mean, but yeah, we can get back to this. Talking about some spirituality. So since you do believe in reincarnation,
what was while we're on the subject and how we can tie that back into the original topic, this whole trans thing seems to be a resurgence of Gnostic dualism.
Well, I mean, it sort of goes straight with pagan.
Like you're not necessarily who you are on the outside. What defines you goes on what's going on in your head.
Yeah, I mean, on that topic, I mean, dualism is really big, and I don't know how much you guys are into the whole like conspiracy theories and Illuminati and Masons and stuff like that, but dualism is really big with Masonic people, that kind of thing, even like Satanists and stuff like that.
I wouldn't say Satanist, but something sinister is going on.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Backpedaling a little. My bad. No, but I think a lot of things are mental, psychological, hormonal, but there's also a spiritual component. Believing in reincarnation, I think that kind of brings a lot of things to light as far as like transgenderism, LGBT stuff, because I feel like, for instance, me, I believe in reincarnation. I believe that I was male in at least one or possibly two or more of my previous lives. So that being the case, I feel like that ties into me being bisexual in this life. And I think the same goes for transgender people, that maybe there's some kind of disconnect in their mind where their mind is still in that previous lifetime and hasn't really transitioned, if you will, to who they are in this lifetime, if that makes sense.
It's an interesting theory.
But what I always find interesting is, since you do hold to that, I was wondering, do you also hold to stuff like karma?
Oh yeah, I am a big, huge believer in karma, and like that has really played into a lot of things that have happened in my life. Just situations where I end up like in a bad situation where I'm like needing a ride, or and some little old lady pulls up, hey, do you need a ride? Like $10, or just strangers showing kindness to me, and I always try and like pay it forward. I saw this movie when I was a kid called Pay It Forward, and I really kind of like took that to heart, where basically if I help other people, I believe that at some point in my life that will come back to me.
I mean, a common criticism that I often hear about karma is that often it leads to people, the idea leads to people not really caring about the poor or the sick, because generally what some people will say is that, oh, well, you'll say, oh, well, that kid with cancer was obviously like a murderer or a serial killer in their past life. So, their cancer today is completely deserved.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I get that. I have to, kind of fight against the temptation to just think, well, so and so going through a bad time, that's because karma, because that's not always the case. When I had bad things happen to me in my life, I was like, well, I'm a good person. I don't understand why these bad things are happening. But when I realized, when I had the past life memories and everything, and I realized like kind of the person that I was in one of my previous lives, where I was basically an evil person, it kind of made sense. Everything just kind of fell into place where I realized, okay, it's not so much a punishment thing, but it's a growth thing, like a spiritual growth thing, where I'm going through some things in my current life because of previous lives. Like, it's like God gave me a little bit of a do-over, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So would you incorporate that into what they call mashka, or the idea that you keep being born over and over again until eventually you reach a stage of enlightenment and you break the cycle?
On some level, yeah, I do. I think you do get to decide on some level, like whether or not you stay up in heaven in the afterlife, because I also believe in heaven and hell and all that, but I also believe in reincarnation. That's kind of a mindfuck for a lot of people. But I believe that on some level, yes, you do kind of go through different life cycles and lifetimes until such point as you feel like, hey, I'm ready to be done with this. And between, God and yourself and sort of your life journey, at some point, yes, there is an end to that cycle.
Yeah. So I mean, it's funny how that is because, you know, Buddhist and the like, they make it clear that the reincarnation is not like a sort of a personal thing. It is sort of just a process. It's neither good nor really bad because there is a thing that where people interpret, well, reincarnation is a punishment and you really should be trying to reach enlightenment, um, in order to avoid it. But I mean, Buddhists don't really think in that sort of terminology. You know, reincarnation is not a punishment, nor is it really a reward. It's just, it's like air. It's just a process.
Sorry, I think my sound went. I consider it not so much a punishment, but more so a spiritual growth thing. Yes, it can feel like a punishment in some ways because life can feel like hell on earth sometimes when things aren't going great. And when you're going through any kind of growth as a person, regardless of whether or not you believe in reincarnation, it can feel like a painful process. And it can feel a little bit like, am I being punished for something? So the way that I look at it, I realized that in one of my previous lives, based on, past life memories, that the person that I was just a horrible person. I'm not entirely sure what all that involved, but based on the little glimpses of who that person was, who my former self was, basically I hurt people. And because of that, in my current life, I'm experiencing what it is to have been hurt by people. And in that way, I'm learning compassion for others.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I mean, it's a good thing within the Christian community that the afterlife beliefs have never, you know, because Christianity came from Judaism, and Judaism really doesn't have much, in terms of an afterlife belief. And Christian,
Well, it does in some sense, but Christianity was a product of both Second Temple Judaism and Neoplatonic Greek philosophy.
yeah. So I mean, there is a lot of debate over the afterlife, even within Jewish circles today. Uh, because the Torah is more interested in your works than it is really a lot of the rewards that come after, which, funny enough, is sort of like Buddhism in a way. You know, the Buddhist doesn't really dismiss God altogether. The Buddha generally just says that, what's the word? The Buddha just generally says that, you know, don't, God might exist, but what's more important is the works that you do on the planet today. So don't worry about God. And, that's sort of like, I think I think that sort of does go with Judaism in a sense because, the book, the Old Testament is very much filled with just messages on how to live your life. Do you take a sort of works approach, MJ?
In a sense, in the sense of believing in karma. Now, what I believe as a Christian is that my works can't save me. Basically, like the price is already paid, like Christ died on the cross, that kind of thing. So, he already did everything. So for us to think that we can get to heaven by our works alone, that's kind of an arrogant way of thinking, because it's like then it becomes a competition of like, oh, who's better than the other person, or I can be the best of the best of the best of the Christians.
But it also says in James that faith without works is dead.
Exactly. So I think the interpretation that I would take from that is that there are Christians that think that just going to church on Sunday, sitting in a pew and reading the Bible, that's enough, but they don't really look outside themselves. They don't go and help the homeless or, the poor or anything like that. James is really big. The book of James is really big on helping the fatherless and the widows. So basically, it sums it up in like one verse that says, pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is to visit the fatherless and the widows in their affliction and keep themselves unspotted from the world. So basically, to summarize Christianity or the whole of Christianity, what that should be about is showing empathy for others while also keeping yourself, righteous, for lack of a better word.
All right, we got less than 5 minutes because we got a doubleheader tonight.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So another thing is that I do see a lot of the philosophy that you talk about does go back to Taoism in a sense, and there are some comparative religion studies that do go into how, you could make Taoism and Christianity compatible. Have you heard of Taoism?
Taoism or Taoism? I'm not sure if I caught that right.
Aren't they both?
Taoism. Okay, I'm not very familiar. Can you expand on that a little bit for me?
Taoism is sort of like, I'm trying to think of it. We've had a guest on it about Taoism, and really it's sort of it's a sect of Buddhism in a sense, but it's like sort of the opposite of Confucianism. Confucianism is very conservative, while Taoism is very liberal in many sense.
Oh,
It believes everything is sort of like this pantheistic sort of thing where everything is this energy.
oh, okay. I think I follow. Well, I mean, I'm kind of new agey in a sense, but not in the sense of thinking that I can be some sort of demigod or anything like that. I have a lot of friends who are into that sort of spirituality where they think that they can reach a certain sort of enlightenment where they basically are like, oh, God lives in us and stuff like that. But like they think that God literally lives in them or that they are a form of God, if that makes sense.
And although I will say New Age people are very good when it comes to drugs.
Yeah.
I can always rely on them to hook me up.
Right? Well, yeah, a lot of the drug culture ties into spirituality, and a lot of spirituality ties into the drug culture.
Yeah. I mean, it is, I definitely think it is an interesting time. A last question before we wrap things up. But, what do you make of sort of the decline in the church as of late?
In the West.
Right.
In the West.
In the Orient, it's skyrocketing, but
I think a lot of it has to do with sort of a secular humanism of like, but it fails. Because basically what happens is that a lot of kids grow up in church. They want to like have a more hedonistic lifestyle than their parents, or they didn't agree with their parents' sort of hardcore spirituality, where they take a sort of watered down spirituality or no spirituality at all. And so what this leads to is, I wouldn't say a godless generation or anything like that. I think a lot of it is just more, how do I frame it? So basically, a lot of the churches, the people in it, are just kind of going through the motions of being Christians or being religious, or else they're that hardcore, pray to Jesus every day, healing and speaking in tongues and that sort of thing, or whatever their particular denomination believes in. But then conversely, you have people that just kind of go through the motions of being in church, or they don't really end up in church at all. They end up just having a sort of pseudo spirituality where it's just a spirituality when it's convenient for them. And I guess some people would say that I'm in that third group, but I actually do believe in God. I do believe in Jesus. I am a born again believer. And I do read the Bible and use it and apply it in different situations in my life. But yeah, I think a lot of people are drifting away from church either because they want to live a sort of lifestyle that doesn't jive with, certain rules of Christianity, or because they experience some kind of spiritual abuse or mistreatment or whatever in their life, or saw some hypocrisy or whatever in their church experience. That's the majority.
And not being educated in biblical scholarship and hermeneutics also helps with that.
Mhm.
Right.
Being brought up in legalistic, evangelical households without any of that.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I caught all that.
It said being raised in evangelical households, legalistic, fire and brimstone environments, and not being educated in biblical scholarship and hermeneutics.
No, definitely. A lot of my peers, it's a story for another day, but I more or less grew up in a cult. Probably should have brought that up from the get-go.
That's what fundamentalism is, basically.
Yeah, it was a fundamentalist sort of Christianity, and so there's something called IFB, Independent Fundamental Baptists.
Yeah, that trash.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you know of the Duggars, like basically their homeschooling group was kind of culty in a way, and so that's what I grew up in, is that group.
It could have been worse. You could have been brought up in the Westboro Baptist Church.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Eee, yikes.
Yeah, if I hear from an atheist that they said that, they were raised in the Westboro Baptist Church, I said, be quite frank, I don't blame you.
Right?
Well, I blame them because they're bad logicians.
But yeah, but
you throw out the baby with the bathwater.
I mean, if your only experience was, would be living like, let's say, in the Westboro Baptist Church sort of religion, I'm like, yeah, I can definitely see why you'd want to question God after being in that.
Yeah, but a lot of them don't tend to drop that attitude. They just carry that onto their atheism.
No, that is very for real, because a lot of the people who got out of that cult as adults, or both cults, it's essentially two in one anyway, either IFB or ATI, IBLP was the other cult. The ones that kind of come out of that, a lot of them tend to go towards either like total like witchy pagan kind of, I'm gonna cast hexes and stuff like that, or a lot of them tend to go towards atheism. It's very rarely do they stay in it. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I still maintain a lot of the way that I was raised in a sense, but I'm also, like I say, I'm LGBT, I would consider myself a little bit of a liberal. And then also I believe in reincarnation. So that kind of is me kind of getting away from my upbringing in a way, but not that I'm trying to get away from it. But I've noticed that a lot of the people, my peers that grew up in that cult, it's like they're going so far in the opposite direction. Like they're just running in the opposite direction of the way that they were raised, to the point that they kind of lose sight of who they are, or lose sight of spirituality, or just kind of altogether reject God or reject Christianity.
All right. So I would, can you tell the audience where they can find you, and if you have any projects that you would like to tell them about?
Absolutely. You can find me, follow me on Facebook. I'm Emjay Bear. And then also I am on Instagram, MJ412. I'm also on YouTube, but I am not really active currently. I'm trying to start that channel back up. I just haven't really fleshed that out yet. But I'm Voodoo Princess 11 on YouTube.
All right.
All right, we got Invoking Theism coming in a few minutes, and see you next time.
Thank you. Nice talking to you guys.